What is up, guys? Andrew McGinnis here, professional sports handicapper, teaming up with OddsJam to bring you guys some great NHL betting tips. 5 tips for you guys today on the video. And let's not waste any time. Let's get started. First tip we're going to go with is know your lineups. You have to know who's in, who's out, who's playing with who does well on what line, whether it's line 1, line 2, line 3, who has chemistry with which players. Especially right now with all the COVID protocol, you have to know the lineups and who's playing, who's not, and who's playing with who. Knowing your lineups is so key, guys, especially knowing which line they're playing on, because you want your top players playing with guys they play really well on. You want to know who's in, who's out, and make sure you get that right information to make sure you give yourself a good opportunity for a successful and winning wager. Number 2, I'm a huge fan of the what have you done for me lately type of handicapping, especially in the NHL. You guys, always see people looking at these statistics and trends dating back from 5, 10, 15 years. Why would we want to listen to trends that date back to that far when it's been completely different players, coaches, and type of hockey? It's all different. And even on a full season, just one season alone, I look for maybe last 5, 6, 7 games to kind of assess a team in that sense. Hockey is such a trendy sport. You're either hot, you're cold. It's very up and down. What have you done for me lately should be very important for all of you guys when doing your handicapping, whether you're betting an under, an over, betting on a team on the puck line, betting on them on the road or at home. You have to use the what have you done for me lately mindset when you're doing your handicapping. Don't just blindly take these favorites. Don't just blindly take these teams on the over or under. Make sure you're checking what they've done for you lately. Our next one here, guys, travel spots. Travel spots is super interesting, and this is one I'll take some more time on. This is one that I find super interesting, and I use for a lot of my handicapping, especially when teams go out on the road. I often say, guys, for the first game of a road trip, you might want to look towards an under. Teams want to start off that road trip on a solid defensive note. They want to land in wherever they got there, and they want their coaching message is always going to be to play solid defensive hockey, take care of the puck, start off that road trip on a good note. Don't be sloppy. At the end of the road trip, it's quite the opposite, and it's not on purpose, but it's the fatigue factor. I always tell people fatigue does not ever take away offense. Fatigue takes away defensive effort, which causes sloppiness, which leads to goals. So I look towards overs at the end of road trips, look to fade teams at the end of road trips. And another angle as well, guys, first game back at home off a road trip. This is one you can use in all kinds of different sports, but especially hockey. You want to assess, was it a successful road trip or an unsuccessful road trip? If you have a team coming off a successful road trip, I'm looking to bet against that team. Their first game back at home. They're feeling good about themselves. They're settling back at home. They're spending some time with the family. And all of a sudden, here comes that good team to town, ready to beat them and stay focused. Meanwhile, that one team is back at home, feeling good about their road trip. They might not be ready for what team is coming to visit them in town. Let's jump into another spot here, backup goaltenders and starting goaltenders. If you're betting the NHL, you have to make sure you know who is starting in goal, especially with the prices as well. Sometimes you might be able to get a pretty good price betting on a backup goaltender. But a lot of times right now, especially with COVID, this information is not being released until later on in the day. And every team is different. Every coach is different as far as when they release this information. But if you're planning to bet a money line or a puck line on a team, you want to make sure you're getting that goaltender in that you are hoping to see. But as far as the backup goaltenders, especially, sometimes you can bet on them and get a better price. If you have a favorite that you think is going to play really well and their backup is in net, you might get a better price because that backup's in net than you would have if that starter was in. And if the backup's playing well, you got a pretty good bet with a pretty good price there. Let's get into special teams, penalty killing, and power plays. It's huge. You need to look at, again, what have you done for me lately? What are these teams doing right now on the special teams? What are their stats on the season, the last 5, last 10 games? special teams is huge in the hockey. It's a lot of the way how a lot of teams score. And how many guys are doing well in special teams? Is it just one or two guys? Is it 3 or 4 players? What kind of options do they have on the special teams is a huge factor to account for NHL hockey betting. And last but certainly not least, top heavy teams versus deep teams. You might find some teams that have so much talent on their rosters, but it might just be those top guys. It might just be 2 or 3 guys that are doing all the scoring. That's not something I really want to bet on, especially late in the season when all these players have played so many games. When you're playing that 60th, 70th game, you want to be able to bet on a team that has numerous guys that can score, not just your top player that makes the most money. I want that guy in the third line that flies under the radar to be reliable for me to put that puck in the net, or at least to create some chances. So look towards those deeper teams, especially in those marquee matchups, than just those players with the flashy players, fancy plays, highlight reel plays, the guys that you see on the highlights. Those teams aren't always the successful teams, just like Edmonton right now, just like Toronto sometimes. The top heavy teams might not always be the best teams. Last but certainly not least, I guess, guys, I'll make sure to say, make sure you're checking out the quotes from the players, coaches, all through the media. You can look at the national news sports. You can look at local beat writers. You can watch the press conferences after games or before games. Those are all some key tips for me that I use when I'm betting on the NHL. A lot more videos to come, guys, after this video. Stay tuned, like and subscribe to the OddsJam channel, and I'll see you guys next time.